So I'm an academic internal medicine doc. So I'm a professor of medicine at the University of Iowa. And I absolutely believe in science, in drugs and technology. When I was diagnosed with relapsing remitting multiple sclerosis in 2000, I sought out the best MS center in the Cleveland Clinic, saw their best people, took the newest drugs, and treated my disease very aggressively. Still within 3 years, I had converted from relapsing remitting to progressive, and it was very apparent that I was headed towards becoming bedridden and quite possibly demented by my illness. And I redesigned my diet. The magic begins. Within 3 months, my fatigue is gone, my brain fog is gone. I can stop modafinil or Provigil. In 6 months, I'm walking around without my walking sticks or canes. I no longer need my tilt-recline wheelchair. In 9 months, I bike around the block for the first time. In 12 months, I do a 18-mile bike ride with my family. This really changes how I understand disease and health. And I'm discovering that people are responding really very, very well.
Chronic disease and autoimmune disease has reached epidemic proportions. By some estimates, autoimmune disease affects about 1 in 5. When you add in other chronic illnesses, about 75% of us are unhealthy. And that's not the way it's supposed to be.
We're clearly in an epidemic because the quality of our diet is steadily declining.
These are day-to-day, hour-to-hour diseases that create a serious burden on individuals and families. So I think we're all having a different level of motivation at this point to do something different. The media chooses to look at these feared outbreaks on other continents when really we should be screaming from the rooftop that, hey, chronic diseases are on the rise, and yet we have the ability to change that.
If you look at CDC data, you will find that the health of Americans has been worsening over the last 20 years. And I think because the primary driver is diet, it's also the way in which we need to find a way out.
The inspiration is the theme of this year's TEDx Mount Hood is the road less traveled, which is what we're talking about, is how do we go to new places that we've never seen before. So I'm Sabina, and I live in Portland, and this is my studio. I'm an artist. I make installations and paintings. I also teach at Portland State in the art department. I turned 40 this year in August, and I got what they call ulcerative colitis, the lower left side of my colon, 50 feet. So it was pretty mild, but mild is like a relative term when you've sort of lived your life carefree and all of a sudden you're running to the bathroom and having bleeding and stuff like that. So a lot of my work is about taking things that have symbols of conflict and, you know, transforming them, the idea of transformative power of beauty, and how do we connect past that. It really gets to you after a while, and I think that a lot of people don't realize, I didn't realize what I was doing to my own body.
Ooh, now I need this stuff. Now I'm gonna do your famous trick.
My famous trick? What's my famous trick?
Try to make it knock down.
I'm Adam, and I live in Tigard, Oregon, and I'm 31 years old. And I live here with my wife, and I have 2 boys. And I work as a site manager for Intel. With our fridge here, so these things here, my older sister lives with us, and she drinks these kind of things. We don't normally drink these kind of things, but
I drink
yeah, we'll have like juice, probably a much higher intake of juice than we should be having. Our vegetable drawer is usually pretty light. in its contents. Hopefully that will change. I've always been reasonably healthy. I've gone back and forth between like a higher weight and a lower weight. You know, my cholesterol is kind of low on the good cholesterol and high on the bad cholesterol. Blood pressure is in control with medication, and most recently, when I had my last weight gain, I developed gastric reflux, acid reflux, and PVACs, premature ventricular contractions with my heart, which are kind of hereditary, but they've been very much exacerbated since, I had a weight gain.
5 days, you could have a new stomach lining. It's always trying to rebuild itself.
My name's Amanda, and I'm a nanny, and I live in Bend, Oregon. I consider myself a pretty healthy eater, just already. I've always been a pretty healthy eater. That's why it's so frustrating that this happened to me. I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis about 4 years ago. So most of my pain is in my wrists and my ankle. And wrists, I'm very limited in activities, simple activities like yoga. I was a huge yoga person, and now I can't put any weight on my wrists. Being a nanny, I have to be really picky about my family, is about the ages, because I am unable to, it's hard for me to pick up kids because my wrists, they don't bend really very far anymore. And it's funny, you wouldn't think you'd need your wrists to hold a child, but you really do. So it's kind of affecting my work. Recently, about 2.5 months ago, I started Actemra, which is also biologic, and that's an injection I give myself once a week. It's pretty scary looking. It's working-ish. The inflammation levels are back down to normal. Everything looks good on paper, according to the rheumatologist, but I'm feeling a little bit better, but definitely not 100%. I still have a lot of pain. After hearing a lot of success stories, I am gonna give it a try, and I'm gonna really put my all into it, because it's kind of like my last ditch effort.
That one's called Crater, but then there's all this plant life. So when I first got diagnosed, I basically ignored, my body for the first 2 months, and I was like, this is not happening. I was having bleeding, and then finally I got really frustrated, and I was like looking for answers, and then I found this diet.
Even besides the medications, like I want to be a good role model for my boys. For me, I'm starting to realize more and more that it's an investment that you have to make, or else you end up with this, right?
I think if I were able to be well again, I would never take anything for granted again, because that's all I want. It's all I want out of anything in the world. I want to feel better. I want this to go away. I want to be the old me, back when I did take everything for granted.
The conventional approach for chronic disease is to diagnose and then immediately treat with the medication. And so we also compartmentalize diseases. So you treat by organ system. So as people accumulate more and more chronic diseases, they have more and more physicians on more and more different drugs.
It turns out that among people in the medical world, there's not a long tradition of appreciating nutrition. Most medical schools have not included it to any great degree in their curriculum.
In terms of the conventional medical model, conventional physicians aren't trained in nutrition. They have so much other education that they focus on. Most medical doctors receive 4 hours or less in nutrition.
The traditional nutrition information that has been included in medical school curriculums has been very biochemically based, historically students do learn about, you know, how does vitamin A or vitamin D interact within, you know, a human system.
What we have to do is to help physicians understand the concept of nutritional therapy, which means that good nutrients can reverse many kinds of chronic diseases in a way that's very positive for the patient without the use of drugs and other things. And I don't object to the use of drugs, but there are ways in which physicians can help their patients by helping the patient know how important nutrition is in their own management of their conditions.
What the medical students aren't being taught is if you fix the root cause, which is diet and lifestyle, you could roll back these progressive diseases.
My name is V. Capaldi, and I consider myself a miracle. I have secondary progressive MS and have been legally disabled. August 5th, it was 15 years. And that translated into bilateral loss of the use of my hands and inability to swallow and to basically take care of myself, which resulted in full-time care. And I'm going to try and guide my hand to apply a little eyeliner. And then I started doing the protocol, and within 30 days, my body started responding. Miracles started happening, and it continues to happen even to this day. And I actually am pretty close to gainful employment. I wasn't able to drive for many years. I actually bought a new car. Got a little red Fiat. I'm thriving, even better than I was before I was ever diagnosed with multiple sclerosis.
In this journey, you have to find meaning in your circumstances right now so that there's purpose and value in their circumstances. And with good fortune, diet and lifestyle changes will stop the decline and quite potentially restore function, reduce symptoms, allow them to reduce and even eliminate some, if not all, of their medicines.
It's going to be, you know, really difficult giving up all the foods, you know, that you're used to eating, and, you know, especially like foods that, you know, are, you know, have high fat or high salt, those kind of foods. I feel like my palate is geared toward, you know, the typical American diet.
I think everyone has that moment where they have to have the aha and like they have to commit. And I don't think that that had ever happened until I was like, huh, I'm eating this chocolate and probably in the next hour I'm gonna be in the bathroom with severe symptoms. And that kind of like behavior mechanism, like it's an electric shock, it really gets to you after a while.
The hardest thing will definitely be, I think, the social aspect, because my friends are very social. They're every day they're out doing something. And that usually, you know, after some sort of outdoor activity, like a bike ride or a hike or, you know, a long walk with the dog, they'll meet up at Brother John's or 10 Barrel or, you know, and have a couple beers and eat pizza. So that's gonna be probably the hardest thing for me.
All right, are we ready?
Yeah, we called earlier about some chicken livers.
Yep. Mike, what did you do with the chicken livers down here?
Cool.
There you go. Anything else for you?
Do you know a little information about where the livers are from? Or where
they're from.
I have heard that it's a huge component of the diet. Emphasis on meat and vegetables, but also the organ meats, because there are some things in organ meats that you can't get anywhere else.
Some organic feed, they're on a non-GMO project, things like that. And so that's
cool.
Where we actually switched to them because of that. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Let's hope it's good, because liver sounds a little hard to stomach. Interesting.
Most people know they want to or they should eat better, eat healthier. And if they had access to whole foods, there really is a genuine concern that the food won't taste good. And if the food doesn't taste good, people are likely not to eat it. And so this goes back to having a little bit of inspiration, motivation, and risk in the kitchen to cook again.
It's hard to make dietary changes when you've been eating a poor diet for your whole life and nobody's told you, hey, this is actually putting you at increased risk of disease. And so we're not really there to tell people they're doing something wrong or that it's even their fault. We are just providing the information and giving them some guiding principles so that when they do start to make the changes, it can come from within.
So we really want to highlight this half plate of veggies and including healthy fats with your meal.
My colleague, Dr. Julie Briley, and I developed the Food as Medicine Everyday series almost 5 years ago. So it's a 12-week hands-on whole foods cooking and nutrition series that is actually taught by naturopathic physicians. And every week we build on our nutrition knowledge.
Women should have no more than 6 teaspoons of added sugar a day. And men should have no more than 9 teaspoons.
So we need time to integrate that information in order to lead to long-term habits. And then the incorporation of cooking meals together is really important. Getting people to touch food, see food, smell food, really helps to develop a healthy relationship with food. We have a wide range of socioeconomic and educational backgrounds in terms of the participants who come into these Food as Medicine every day. And in terms of label reading and nutrition knowledge, it's an equal playing field.
We've been teaching this program in very diverse communities in Portland for the last 5 years. And most recently, we've been in Coffee Creek Correctional Facility. And so this is a women's correctional facility located south of Portland. In addition, a lot of these women are dealing with worsening diabetes, weight gain, and other health issues while incarcerated. And in reality, these are women that are going home. They're going home to their families, and they want to be rehabilitated. They want to cook well for their family and their other family members that might have diseases. So they truly, really need this information.
So when you look on your label, you'll see a section called Nutrition Facts with all the numbers listed. I'm going to tell you why we don't actually want to look at that part of the label. The most important part to look at first is actually the ingredient list.
And it's such an important, crucial skill that people need to learn. And then we go through and we actually read some of these labels and we see that one soda is double or triple the amount of sugar that you should have in one day. This is like mind-blowing for people. Then we look at yogurt labels and processed food labels. I mean, it's truly such an eye-opening experience.
These are vanilla. So this is 18 grams of sugar, 15 grams of sugar, 17 grams of sugar. So it has some maltodextrin in it. This one's actually pretty good on sugar content for ketchup. Only 2 grams of sugar in a tablespoon. Good. They look sweet, not very healthy. My blood pressure is pretty high. I think the last time that I took it, it was 125/85 or something like that. It's elevated, so. I take a beta blocker for that. It's called metoprolol. And so, my goal with this project is to get off that medication. And a couple of the tools are 100% pomegranate juice and hibiscus tea, which both work to naturally lower blood pressure in place of a beta blocker. What are the ingredients? Is it 100% pomegranate juice, do you know?
Just juice from ripe pomegranates.
Perfect. That's exactly what I'm looking for. Absolutely.
Awesome.
Just nothing with no added sugar or cherry juice in it.
No stuff.
Okay, perfect. All right, thank you so much.
What physicians, we get very uncomfortable when a simple solution fixes many disease states. But it turns out that the simple solution of a nutrient-dense diet filled with vegetables getting rid of the toxic stuff, is the simplest solution for nearly every chronic disease state. It may not cure you, but it'll certainly reduce symptoms, reduce the need for meds, often to the point where if you stay with it, you can get off medication after medication after medication.
So when I was at my sickest, I was pretty much bedridden. I had lost my job. I had been in the hospital 3 times in 6 weeks. I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's disease, which is an autoimmune thyroid disease, and celiac disease about 3.5 years ago, after about a year of declining health. And when I got my diagnosis, they just told me to go gluten-free and that everything would change and I would feel totally better. And I didn't. I actually felt a lot worse. And I started to think, well, maybe there's something about my diet that's really not supporting me. And I did a lot of research, and I really came across dietary modification for people with autoimmune disease, and what I found was totally shocking. So I had been living off of all of the foods that the experts were now recommending that people with autoimmune don't eat. And so those were things like grains, legumes, soy, and that was like all I was eating. So I decided to do an elimination diet, and I removed all of the gut triggers. So I did the autoimmune protocol, and it totally transformed my life. In 6 months, I was back to good health, and I wouldn't say everything was perfect, but it was the thing that really jump-started me on the road to recovery.
What we have come to accept as normal is the steady decline from the age of 18 with worsening blood pressure, worsening clogging of the artery, worsening mental capacities. When we quit eating all these vegetables and started eating sugar and white flour, we decreased the fiber content, and we used to have 100 to 150 grams of fiber in our diet, and now we have maybe 15 to 20 grams. So we're starving the health-promoting bacteria. So we've done a lot of things that switched us from having a healthy, disease-resistant body, for which our DNA programmed us, to an inflamed, sickly, disease-prone body by having micronutrient deficiencies, by having our gene expression changed, and by shifting which bacteria and viruses live in and on us.
The microbiome is all of the microorganisms that live on and within our bodies. And so there's about 10 times as many microorganisms that live in our bodies as there are cells of our own bodies. And one of the things that we understand is that we have this symbiotic relationship with them. We provide a lovely home for all these microorganisms, and then they directly influence our health. One of the things that is the most important property of a healthy gut microbiome is diversity. So we want something like 500 to 1,000 different species of microorganisms growing in there in healthy relative quantities. There's certain things that can actually make the wrong types of bacteria grow. Then you have a system that's out of balance. Then you have the lack of variety that is one of the biggest risks for chronic illness. So we need to feed them vegetables and fruit and nuts and seeds and these great sources of nutrient-dense fiber, lots of plant phytochemicals. And then we can have this healthy, robust variety of microorganisms living within our digestive tracts, living within our bodies, that are then providing us with all of these great benefits, like regulating the immune system. So the gut microbiome, beyond influencing the immune system, influences things like brain health, influences how our neurotransmitters are regulating themselves. They can change our hormones and influence our hormones. And we understand just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the gut microbiome. We are starting to understand how profound and far-reaching their effects are.
You want to start? Can you start for me? Sophia's into cooking herself. She's really good at telling me what I'm supposed to eat and not eat. Right, Sophia? You're like, Mommy, are you sure you're supposed to eat that? Like, Yeah, you're right. It's actually pretty simple. People think that yogurt is really complicated, but it only takes 15 minutes. Not like you're chopping 3,000 vegetables. It's a lot easier.
Don't put vegetables in here.
I know, it's a lot easier than making like vegetable soup. So if you look at this, this is what makes the yogurt. It's called the culture.
Just like those, my science kids.
Yeah, your science kids. Like when I started with this healthy way of eating, my inflammation was like 60, which is really high. And now it's gone down to normal levels. Like at the end of the day, I would come home from work and my lower back would be paining and I'd have bleeding. And now I can, you know, have a really energetic day. Like I can go to the zoo with my kids. I can go out in the evening. So I can resume a normal life, which last year was not possible. So that has been a major victory. And then we're just gonna put this on top and it will be ready in 24 hours.
So when you start doing a dietary approach and a lifestyle approach, you're providing the resources that your body needs to heal and the opportunity to heal, which you get through sleep and you get through the hormone regulation that comes with stress management and activity. So you get resources and opportunity, and then you don't have to place a Band-Aid on the situation, right? The body has the most amazing capacity to heal itself when you actually give it the resources and the opportunity. And so when we give our bodies that chance to be healthy, our bodies take it. We don't need to just drug ourselves up to not feel bad. We can actually feel amazing. So I used to be morbidly obese. I had over a dozen different diagnosed health conditions, including 3 autoimmune diseases. And I was sick. I was in pain all the time. I had migraines, I had depression and anxiety. I didn't have any energy. And I had 2 young daughters. And I was right at the cusp of this really high-profile academic career without the energy to be a career mom and without the energy to try to balance what's necessary to run a successful academic lab in the current funding environment and be the best mom that I wanted to be for my children. And so I had to take time off of my career in order to just do one thing at a time. And I was not surviving motherhood. I was getting sicker and sicker. I was not getting enough sleep. You know, I was a wreck and I needed a solution. So I started to apply my scientific background to my own health and experienced absolutely, you know, what some people would call miraculous health turnaround. So within 2 weeks of changing my diet, I was able to discontinue 6 prescription medications. And it gave me back something that I didn't even understand I could have again.
I'm feeling better. I'm sleeping really well at night. I used to wake up like 4 or 5 times a night and just toss and turn and be uncomfortable for the position I was in with my joints. And now I'll sleep the whole way until the morning and maybe only wake up 1 time. It's really, really awesome. That's the biggest change that I've noticed. So, but yeah, energy levels are higher, definitely. It's definitely energy and sleep. And I think overall mood too. I feel really empowered and really excited to get up every day and try new things and cook new things. Here goes. It's definitely not something that happens overnight, as I'm sure you guys know.
The American Heart Association has shown that in 2014, we spend about $1 billion every day on cardiac-related disease healthcare costs. And they're expecting that to double in another 14 or 15 years, so that around 25, 26, then there's going to be, the cost will be twice as much, and we'll be spending $2 billion a day. Taking care of someone who has chronic heart failure, for example, or coronary artery disease can be very expensive in terms of surgeries or procedures. And therefore, my view is that we will not be able to sustain caring for everyone who has it. That's the compromise we'll have to make. And we'll have to give people the best medical treatment we can without undergoing all the procedures that might be life-saving, because I don't think we could afford to do it if that many people in our population had the problem.
So when you look at the statistics, for something like autoimmune disease, you've got roughly 50 to 60 million Americans who are affected, which is twice the number of Americans that are affected by cardiovascular disease and 4 times the number of Americans that are affected by cancer.
The CDC projects that 1 in 3 people will have type 2 diabetes by the year 2050, if we stay on this trajectory that we're on right now. And that means we can't stay on that trajectory, because if that were to happen, it would bankrupt our medical system.
And the decreased worker productivity is 2 to 3 times the cost of the medical care. Another sidebar is that the lack of healthy workers will devastate our economy. Even if you decide we're not going to cover any of those healthcare costs, that people, you're on your own for that, we can't afford the drain on the economy from lack of healthy workers.
What the Moore Institute wants to do is to help people understand the process by which poor diets actually lead to disease, and that brings up the word epigenetics. So epigenetics is the modification of genes by what we call the environment. In this case, I'm referring to nutrition. The science that I was talking about that we want to share is based on discoveries that have only been known for the last decade or two. And that is that the nutrition that a person gets when they're developing is what determines their likelihood of having diseases when they're older. So now let me explain the 100-year effect, how it works. I'm in my 60s. My mother is in her 90s. And the egg that made me was made in my 92-year-old now mother when she was a fetus in my grandmother's womb. And the egg that made me was almost exactly 100 years ago. So I'm 100, and that 100-year life I've had has been dependent on my grandmother's nutrition, on my mother's nutrition, on my childhood nutrition, and now on my nutrition as an adult. If I can just give you an example, the way you get nutrients while you're developing before you're born will tell a growing body how to turn on genes or turn off genes. And if there's not enough nutrients to grow well, then what will happen is some of the genes that should be turned on and operating will be turned down like a dimmer switch on a light. They'll be gradually turned down by a mechanism called epigenetics. And then later in life, those genes will make a person more vulnerable for having disease. Now, many people have said the problem with emphasizing this is that it somehow blames mothers for all the disease that we have, and that's really not true. The truth is that the food environment we all live is where is the problem. And if we have to blame something, we should blame the fact that the American population has allowed food industries to determine our taste preferences and somehow keep us from eating the kinds of food that would be healthy.
Last time I was making goat yogurt, and I was really enjoying that. And I was still having problems with some digestion, and so right now I'm not doing any dairy, yogurt included, and I've also sort of started pureeing my vegetables, and it seems like it's going better with a more pureed, dairy-free diet. So I don't know. I may have to sort of like go this route for a while until my body's like totally more healed. Like a typical artist mentality is I start sort of like I start speeding up and I become more manic. And every couple of days, like I'd have to go in for yoga or I have to go in for acupuncture or something to like somebody to jolt me back to like my baseline, which in turn helps me make better choices with my food. Just trying out things like that to manage my energy level. I love the big picture. The details are excruciating. Right now I'm in the midst of that. And then I have to switch hats and sort of think about my big idea where it's spreading.
I think this is the beginning of a new movement in the prepared foods industry and the restaurant industry. One that really says we need trust and we need a maximum amount of transparency. People need to feel safe. I do think it comes from people being increasingly ill and realizing for the first time that their relationship to food might participate in their health. But also I think because of the healthcare system and the rewards that are going into preventative care, people are taking more initiative for their health.
We're at Dick's Kitchen, named after me and functioning originally as my kitchen as I lived upstairs for a while and was able to experiment on this kind of a new idea. I've got a couple of genetic dice rolling against me, having both a methylation defect and a tendency toward either prediabetes or diabetes or something like that. So I don't manage blood sugar very well, and therefore what I eat is crucial. My health concerns are not unique to me. I've got probably a double or triple whammy going, but many folks have issues that will be made better by much more conscious eating. Dick's Kitchen is really an effort to promote not just healthier eating, but a healthier approach to how we source our food. The rest of our menu is intended to create food that people recognize as their favorite food, hamburgers and side dishes and potatoes, but done with much more thought and much more balance in mind.
I feel like I interact with people every day that are suffering needlessly because of choices they're making because of convenience. They don't know how to help themselves, things aren't available for them to help themselves, and they feel trapped by what products are available to them in the grocery store. Food is something that can affect us immediately, and so what's really amazing is to give people that experience of just having a cup of broth and noticing that they don't have a sour stomach in the morning. And it's just interesting to see parents saying they've never seen their children so calm, or they've never felt like they slept so well after a meal. And not a deep, vacant sleep, a restorative, healthy sleep, the kind you should be having. It's amazing how quickly the body responds when it has the tools it needs, and I think the tools that are the most accessible for the body come in food form.
Yeah, so the Brooklyn House is, we call it European-style comfort food. So this lady would like the pork chop special, but she's on the SIBO protocol.
Okay, so we have the pasta puree that we can do with her for...
And there's no garlic chunks in there?
There's no garlic chunks, it's all strained. So we're all good to go.
Thank you. And I often accidentally say that our patients need this or that when really I mean our customers. And it's because there are a lot of naturopathic doctors and nutritional therapists in this city who trust us. They've been here, they've talked to us, they know why we're doing what we're doing. They know how. They have that transparency, and so they trust giving us as a resource to their patients. So what we provide here is a truly holistic food as medicine experience. You get both the foods that are healthy for you and the treatment that is healthy for you. You get to invite your whole family, and the family member who likes the steak and potatoes, and the family member who's vegan, and the family member who has celiac disease are all gonna be fine, and you with your SIBO-specific diet can feel like you just ordered a meal. And so those customers are the most invested in this restaurant. They are personally invested in the health of this restaurant because it allows them a place to go where they don't feel like a social outcast for trying to heal their body through food.
The hardest thing to do when you're introducing this lifestyle to people is to get them out of their heads. People are actually, I think, very instinctive eaters, and when their body responds positively to a food, regardless of whether their brain is telling them it's going to be kind of weird or unusual, they will naturally gravitate toward it as a delicious experience. Again, that doesn't necessarily mean they're ready to jump into eating a whole piece of liver, but if we can prepare it in a way that makes it more accessible, we'll be able to offer them a way to participate.
In the food business, first and foremost, it's just got to be a satisfying meal. No matter how healthy you think you are, if you're not enjoying it, you're not likely to return. So we have to balance creating a great environment and a welcoming environment for folks with various nutritional orientations. But in the end, anybody who has an interest in healthy food should be intrigued enough to dig deeper. And that we hope we can do that without annoying people.
Our fears all are faraway unknowns box us in. I ask you to step out of your box, climb over those walls, and look out of your window and enter into the space of the unknown. Volunteer at that. Sorry, I'm gonna start again. Sorry. Okay. Our fears, I have been not sleeping enough, so that's having a little impact on my bowels, but I'm still holding on to my diet. I haven't really gone and gotten a chocolate bar. So I think what's good is I'm shifting away from emotional eating, and now I just need to like still manage that stress. So it's like in the middle of like trying to like find the time to like, you know, be like, this is gonna help me think better. Let me get this centered.
Be aware of TEDx, which is coming up this weekend at Revolution Hall. We have the artist in residence of that program right now.
I love it.
I know, it looks good.
Yeah, the whole thing's going to be amazing. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. You know, my talk. Have you heard about the talk thing? Okay, so my time was 15 with the animation on the 17th, and now they're like, oh, we're 3 minutes off with our whole thing. Well, I'm like, then you can be like shorter, like you can be 50 seconds. I don't know. Yeah, good. Yeah, we might have to make it a little higher, I don't know. Okay, what's going on with this? Oh, be careful. Why is it so different? Slightly back. Yeah, right there, perfect. So once they're in that position, can we move them further or not? What are they tied to? Hi, Maria. Listen, you're picking up the children, okay? Just bring them over here to, I'm gonna send you the address, okay? It's 14th and Start. Okay, hold on, where's my, where am I confused? Okay, that angle. I don't know, man. I don't know. Maybe I should take one away. He's pulled it back. So I'm just gonna chill out.
We have to change the food culture. People have to realize that it's just not their own discipline for eating better food, which is important. But we need to find ways in which eating healthy foods is really the cultural norm. And we have long ways to go to do that.
I'm really glad that you asked about food culture because I think that that's the important piece that's been missed. We talk about individual responsibility and we talk about why people aren't doing what they're doing, but we fail to really give credit to the fact that we live within a culture that is telling us how we should think and feel and act in regards to health and wellness. Our society doesn't really support our choices to be healthy and well. Corporate work environment, every place I've ever heard about, the break room was full of junk. I mean, can we bring in a fruit platter? Are you kidding? No, we're bringing donuts in. What are we having for dinner at the potluck? Pizza, obviously. Like, oh my gosh. Can we get salad? Sure, what do you end up with? White lettuce and croutons and cheese, Caesar salad. Like, yeah, great. White lettuce or plain iceberg lettuce. It's like an effort to actually do anything healthy in the corporate world, in the work world, which is where most of us spend so much of our day. If there's not a lot of support there, that's gonna be tough to make change.
Diet-wise, there's still a challenge. I still have, unfortunately, incredible levels of stress in my life. My brother has been staying with us for the past 2 months, and that's a really big source of tension for me. And then we were trying to buy a second house, and we pulled out of that, and so it's just been a very, very busy and challenging time on top of things with work and other things in Tyler's school. I've been able to, like I've told you before, I've been able to go for like a week, like 2 weeks, but then like when I fall off, I fall off really hard. It's difficult, especially with the boys, and we seem to eat out quite a bit because of our schedules and things like that. I would say that has been the biggest barrier to being able to successfully implement these things is eating out, So I'm still working on the day-to-day choices. Like I'm trying to have at least 1 paleo meal a day and 2 paleo snacks a day. And that I've been successful with, and I just, I tend to feel a whole lot better when I'm adhering to that type of, diet. It feels like every time we meet, I say this, but it seems like things are going to start slowing down. I'm hoping, kind of letting my brother stay with us and trying to get into this, buy the second house and things like that. We're kind of shooting myself in the foot for being successful with this.
It really is these chronic lifestyle-based diseases that are really taking the greatest toll on our health. And the United States is actually one of the greatest sufferers of these chronic diseases. So despite the fact that we have access to incredible modern medicine, we're ranking pretty poorly compared to our fellow countries in terms of how we're managing the load, the burden of chronic disease. So it's pretty serious, I'd say.
What we have come to accept as normal is the steady decline from the age of 18 with worsening blood pressure, worsening clogging of the artery, worsening mental capacities. When in fact, what is normal is fully robust health, physical capacities, mental capacities, into our 90s.
Your diet actually has to be a lifestyle choice. And so what we need to look at when we're giving individual recommendations to patients is We need to look at their stage of life and their disease process and their health goals. We need to look at if they have a food sensitivity or a food allergy. But in addition, we also need to think about their cultural upbringing, their ethical choices around food, and then also, and very importantly, their access. Do they actually have access to this healthy, healing food? And so all of those things need to be taken into account when you're working with a patient and trying to get them on the right path. We are all individuals, and what is optimal for each of us is going to be a little bit different and is probably going to be a moving target, because how our bodies respond to food is dependent on how much sleep we got. It's dependent on our stress. It's dependent on exactly what our gut microbiome is doing. It's dependent on the last time we were exposed to a virus or a bacteria. There are so many things that influence how we respond to foods. So creating a diet, right? And it's here's your rules, here's your yes and your no's, isn't really the goal. It's creating the scientific foundation for understanding how to choose a food, and then providing a framework from which people can start and then experiment to figure out what is really optimal for them and what makes them feel the best.
I have gotten off track for sure, and so I've just been dealing with that, I guess. I can definitely tell a difference in how my body feels when I was on track versus to now that I'm off track. Just things were better, little things that I think affect the condition, like sleep. I was sleeping a lot better, and energy, and not even the specifics of the actual disease or the condition. It was just those little things that I noticed a lot. And the big one is pain. It's back. So unfortunately, I haven't been back to my functional medicine doctor because for a while there I was paying out of pocket. My insurance doesn't cover functional medicine. And so I was paying out of pocket. And at some point, it just got to be too expensive because I was paying hundreds of dollars in vitamins and supplements, and every time I went, it was more tests, and insurance wouldn't cover this test or that test, and so it was definitely starting to add up. Right now, what's holding me up is I'm getting lots of information from just which diet to follow, because now I'm hearing that meat is not good for arthritic conditions, and I went to an iridologist in town, and she was amazing, and she's a recovering, I guess she's not recovering, she's in remission from her rheumatoid arthritis, and she is very adamant about following a strict vegan diet. I definitely felt like I was confused. I'm still confused. That's another one of the big reasons why I'm struggling right now. I'm confused. And especially when you yourself are Googling, that's the worst.
Ooh, those are vegan ones.
Yum. You can still find good information on the internet, but it takes a skilled eye to be able to sift through all the information and pull out the pieces. So I do think you can get some information from the media, but if it's specifically related to your disease state and you're thinking about making a big change, I think you do need to seek out a healthcare professional that has that training and that can work with you along the way. I think you often do need support and guidance and practical information to be successful.
Right.
And what do you understand what's keeping you from getting to between the I'll try and I can?
I've made a huge amount of changes in this year. So I do feel like I'm doing my best. And that's still not good enough, and that's what is so upsetting me,
Yeah.
and it's like,
you know what?
I've done all this stuff,
Yeah,
and it's
I don't know
still
what's,
the same thing.
There's something right now that.
And I think it's just also I think the thing is, like you said, like, you have to accept that you're not going to be able to go back to that lifestyle, and so you have to, accept that, okay, you've done all this stuff and this is part of what you're doing, but it's not going to get you back to eating ice cream.
No, and I guess
not that you want to eat ice cream in the first place. So.
Well, that's where you have to go. And you know what? Everybody goes through a mourning process. Everyone does.
Right.
And you have to go through it. You have to let yourself go through it. And you have to be angry about what you're giving up, because you are giving up.
Yeah.
And then once you get past that, you'll be to the next point where you realize what amazing things you gained from this.
Sure.
I mean, you will. I know you will. Even with a restricted diet, your lifestyle is actually going to be opened up because you're going to be healthier. You will be able to eat an immense amount of variety once we get your inflammation down.
Basically, like, I was just laying there and I was putting my 18-month-old down, and it's like, it wasn't vertigo, but it was just like, I heard like a pop, and then like just everything like shifted 90 degrees. Like, it was really strange. Like, it's like not like my viewing angle or anything like that, but it just felt like
kind of your center of balance was totally shifted. But I mean, I think it was more of like a situation where they really wanted to just rule everything out because the way that the symptoms were a little bit all over the place and could have aligned with something that was worse, which also kind of like fueled the anxiety and the not knowing. And I think going through that process and them eliminating things like in the end helped, because then it gets you realizing like it wasn't these things where it could have been.
So I was pretty much in the emergency room all day that Saturday, and I had a Cat A scan. I had, where they inject you with the iodine and things like that, and not a pleasant feeling. You don't want to get, obviously, a bad prognosis, but I was, hoping that he would tell me, you got to start doing this or you got to start doing that, because this is, so. But it's definitely a motivator, absolutely. It's been kind of night and day as far as the heart palpitations, and really good as far as the reflux. But when I do go off and I'm not eating paleo, then the reflux kind of comes roaring back. So, and I think the night that I had the heart palpitation, I was having some reflux symptoms as well. So, it's kind of maybe related to that. I think I was a little naive on how big of an adjustment or a change it would be, especially with things like my work schedule and stuff like that. So, I've got to learn some strategies for when things don't go according to plan, how to keep it all together.
We need to both change the education when it comes to food, and change the food supply, and change how our food is grown, and change our access to food, and change the cost of food, so that healthful foods are the ones that are subsidized, not the other way around. And so it's a problem with so many different moving parts, and it requires us as a community to really demand that all of these different moving parts are addressed.
The truth is that we now have people in Oregon and across the country are suffering what we call high-calorie malnutrition. And I feel sorry for people who are in this condition. I don't blame them, because our food culture has driven us to the place where the only access of affordable food for many people are high-calorie foods that don't have nutrients.
The prevailing wisdom is that we have an obesity epidemic and a lot of people who are having trouble managing chronic conditions, and that is largely due to high-calorie malnutrition, where someone's getting a whole lot of fat and sugar, but not the nutrients they need really to stay healthy. And so in that case, prescribing vegetables might be appropriate. In other cases, when someone's having stalled healing due to malnutrition, especially if they're low income, the problem might be protein in their diet, that they're just not getting enough protein to grow new skin, and therefore they can't heal. So that's where we started our first program, was in what we now call curative nutrition dosing. So we're finding folks who have stalled healing with wounds or burns or surgical incisions who aren't able to get better because their body just doesn't have the nutrients to do it. And so we prescribe them a limited course of nutritious food that is tailored to them specifically, the right amount of grams of protein and calories for each meal, and they eat it and get better.
The social determinants of health make up about 70 to 75% of what is a person's personal health picture. That's something that ordinarily a physician can't impact very much for his patients, but they can impact the nutritional picture in the home by addressing food security in the clinic. Providence has adopted a particularly deep set of interventions, and so they screen for food insecurity because it's quick and simple, but then if a person is food insecure, they're matched up with a health navigator who assesses their full situation, that has patients walking out of a clinic with some new resources to help improve their diet. When I started in April of 2014, there was one clinic screening in Oregon, and now there are over 200.
A lot of my patients who've done it so far have really found that that things have improved.
Yes.
So let me know how it goes, but I think that it's been really helpful, and thanks again for being honest.
So from the top down, our medical decision makers really have kind of a blind spot here. So it's really important for programs like this to fill that blind spot and to inform our system of what could be and what should be.
It's pretty exciting. We got this idea when we learned about My Street Grocery. We got this idea to write a grant through our Good Samaritan Foundation, which is the foundation here at our hospital. So we decided we wanted to write a grant to get vouchers to help people shop for healthier food options. Because what we were finding is our physicians would go into the exam room and talk to someone with congestive heart failure or diabetes, and the physicians would say, you need to be eating healthier, eat more vegetables, and the patients would look at them like, you're crazy. You know, I get $180 a month in food stamps and I can't afford that kind of diet.
Upon coming here, I had a very unique experience with a patient and was counseling them on dietary choices for their diabetes, and she looked at me and said, are you crazy? That's a rich man's diet. I can't eat those things and pay for them. And she went to the canned food stores and things like that. So that kind of started me on my quest to do a project like this.
Basically, it's not only bringing the food to a population that really needs to have better access, but it's a more well-rounded approach to access, because it means relationships that are already built in, and that trust between patient and provider and social worker, and it's also financial access, it's dietary information specific to medical conditions. So I like to say that bringing the food into the community is not the end of our work, it's the beginning of our work. So we bring the food, and now with this partnership, we provide more resources that truly make it accessible.
All the patients have to do is show up. They don't have to have an appointment on Tuesdays. So usually they're told by their physician, or they're referred off the Good Sam campus. They don't have to jump through any hoops. We've made it as simple as possible. And they come and meet either Scott or I, the social worker or I, and they get $15 a week, three $5 vouchers weekly.
And by bringing My Street in, we bring in what we know is a healthier food selection. If we just gave them, you know, $15 a week to go shop at Safeway, they might go buy, you know, processed, prepackaged foods and, you know, the inexpensive stuff that they're used to buying because that's what they can afford. So here we know they're getting fresher, organic, healthier food items in their shopping.
So these food programs are important because they are treating the immediate needs of patients. They're improving lives first, that's why they're important. And secondly, they're important because they're making a case for food to be used as medicine. I mean, they're helping insurers and regulators understand the role that food can play, how we can save money and reduce suffering with a small resource that's already available by just applying it in an innovative way.
Adelante Mujeres has been around since 2002, and we started out first with our education programs. And one thing that we were seeing over the last 10, now 12, 13 years, is that the mujeres, the women that we see in the program, their health has changed a lot over that generation of students.
Because most of our patients come from Mexico. Their basic diet is really healthy. They eat beans and rice and tortillas and delicious mole, and they do a lot of physical work. They walk places, they exercise on a regular basis. And then they come to this country and there's a wealth of options, but the majority of those options are really not healthy.
And so a couple of years ago, Adelante Mujeres really wanted to make a concerted effort to not only address food, but exercise, stress relief, all sorts of holistic parts of health.
One of those initiatives that we're doing is this great collaboration between Adelante Mujeres and Virginia Garcia. This prescription program involves the provider being able to say, hey, you've got a family member who's at risk either because they have diabetes or they have hypertension or they have obesity. Would your family be interested in getting some education around healthy eating, learning how to prepare healthy food, and then getting a voucher to go to the farmer's market? And so I have several of my families that have participated now for second year, and they're really making great strides in making healthier choices and having access to that fresh local produce.
We are with Virginia Garcia, so the doctor recommended the patient with us. So we are in this group where we have the classes, and these classes is every month, one time every month, and they receive $6 per person in the house per week. So and they can spend that money at the Forest Grove Farmers Market.
Another part of the structure of our program has been to have consistent relationships. So the folks that they're seeing in these monthly meetings are the same staff that are at the farmer's market that can help them navigate once they get there. Okay, we did that thing in class, how are we gonna find it in the market? Or I'm searching for this type of chile or something, or do you know a farmer that has this or that? And so feeling confident that they're going to, when they arrive at the farmer's market, have someone to also be there to kind of be a support when they're trying to find whatever, or feel more welcome when they come to the market.
They're enjoying eating more vegetables, and then we can also follow their metrics. You know, when they come into the clinic, we weigh them, we check their blood pressure, we check their blood sugar, and we're able to see small but steady improvements in their health. And again, we're getting the whole family involved, because even if it's a mom who has diabetes or is overweight, we know that their kids are at risk as well. And so the more vegetables and fruit that's brought into the household, the healthier they're going to get used to eating. So that works really well.
I think with the community, there's really nothing worse than feeling really isolated and alone and like you're the only person doing something. And when you have a community, you're really motivated to stay on track. So when I was really sick, I had a very small community, maybe 3 or 4 people that I was talking to almost every day. And when they had successes, even if I wasn't experiencing success, I was so motivated to keep doing what I was doing. So starting the blog was basically my outlet to start talking about what I was going through with people that also had personal experience with it because as much as my husband loves me and he's interested in what I was doing, he didn't want to hear about it day in and day out, and he didn't really understand what it felt like to be going through what I was going through. So that was a really big outlet for me as far as just sharing what I was going through and then being able to connect with other people who were in the similar boat and also just kind of figure out what they were doing and if it was working for them and try and refine what I was doing and what I was learning. In addition to that, I do try to do a lot of community building because I really believe that the people that are able to be successful find community and have friends that can keep them accountable and can have like social gatherings with and kind of commiserate and collaborate with. So I try to share a lot of that on my blog too to help people connect with each other.
Environment is super important, and that translates to the house, the home, wherever that might be, whatever that looks like for someone. If the people in your household, your immediate nuclear family, whatever that might look like, if there's not a lot of support there, that's gonna be tough to make change. So that's tough. And then the environment that you are in socially, outside of work, what are those people doing? Where are they going? How do they support you? Oy, that's really hard. So if we had a culture of support for everyone to do the best that they could, rather than this judgment that continues to happen almost all the time, it'd be a lot easier. So what people have said about the groups that I run, the food story groups that I run, is that these groups are the only place in their entire lives where they can have the conversation about food and food story and body image and fitness and wellness, where they know that people understand what they're saying without them having to explain it in great detail, like just because they get it. They're living the same sort of stuff.
But it's really helped you, the diet?
Yeah, it has, when I'm on it. And I'm doing it religiously. It's been a struggle for sure.
Yeah.
So Adam hopefully will make it, but he may not make it. His life has just got crazy busy this morning with work, and he had to take off to work, unfortunately. You need community. You need your tribe who really get what you're going through. That's so necessary for people to succeed, because so often they feel like, again, like I'm the only one who can't get my act to get together. I'm the only one who doesn't have the smarts or the information or the wherewithal or the motivation or the willpower to make this work. Then you go sit in a group of 6 people and they all go, oh yeah, I totally get that, I'm the same way. And you go, oh, well, wait, oh, I'm totally normal. There are people who get what I'm going through. You're going through what I'm going through, okay.
I think the best thing, and this is the hardest thing, is like the empathy for yourself when you do fall off the wagon and you do screw up. Like the empathy for that. Like nobody's really there to be like, hey, you know what? Because they don't even get it. They don't even realize it's really hard to be in your shoes and like my shoes.
Having a supportive community actually directly improves our health. So having a supportive community actually changes our hormones. So it changes things like cortisol. It changes how our bodies are responding to stress. It changes things like oxytocin, called the love hormone. So when we are feeling connected and supported, we're producing more oxytocin, which is anti-inflammatory. It helps regulate the immune system. It helps set up the situation in our bodies where our bodies can heal. So having a sense of community and support has been well established in the scientific literature to improve health outcomes. And so when we have that, we don't just have the practical part of this person who understands what I'm going through, this person who's a cheerleader or a shoulder I can cry on, but then we get this wonderful hormonal response to having that community that by itself helps speed up our healing and promotes better health. So it's absolutely fundamental.
That's awesome. I was super secluded in the beginning, and it made me really bummed. So I just was like, put myself out there.
And it's so funny because I had met you before at Mickey Trescott's book talk at Natural Grocers. We sat beside each other because I recognized you.
I had really fast success with it. By November 2013 was my last MS flare. And I made it 1.5 years with no flares at all until I accidentally ate 1 bite of gluten at a restaurant, and I lost feeling in my leg for 3 months. And it is just now coming back.
It's definitely comforting to feel that you're not alone in this. Beth has definitely inspired me. I love her story, and it's like real. It's real evidence. I mean, I haven't had an actual like huge flare up, so I haven't been able to experience that, but she has, and you know, it's a real thing. This whole thing with diet and body, it's real, and so I love that I found someone so close to me that has put themselves in remission through diet. That's so inspiring because it's a long road and it's so frustrating, and you are definitely, I've been tempted to give up, but you know, when you have a friend and a success story, it's definitely keeps you going.
You know, I really had to think about it of how much joy do I get from being in a restaurant to how much joy do I get chasing my kids at a park.
Right.
I get way more joy chasing my kids at a park than I do eating in a restaurant.
Yeah, so I was on prednisone for 3.5 years, 10 milligrams a day for the first 2 years, and then the last year was 5 milligrams a day, and then like the last half year, I was just going down every month, 5 milligrams, 4 milligrams, 3 milligrams, 2 milligrams, 1 milligram, and now I'm completely off of it. Yay. So that's a good feeling because I was really nervous about the long-term effects of prednisone, so.
I like them too. I think I'm used to the tartness and the natural sweetness.
I feel like we really do. There's so much effort that we put. We're like hard workers as people with disease and dietary restrictions. We're like the hardest workers.
You know, the net gain from the having more energy and feeling healthier has really been a plus for us and had a positive effect on our lifestyle.
Yeah, so I mean, it's been about 2 months now of cutting out sugar, where before, I mean, my husband can tell you I had sugar.
You can see it right
here.
here.
Yeah, I still have it over here.
So this is kind of probably bare minimum. She used to have the big syrup pumps.
Yeah, every morning, and this is more now on hand, like for guests or something, or just kind of left over.
Yeah.
I've seen a real difference in my energy level, and I think that now when I do have some sugar, I appreciate it a lot more, you know.
You know, she's lost, you know, almost 10 pounds, and I've lost almost 10 pounds, but she's lost a lot of inches and things like that because of sugar. And
when we sat down and talked about how can we make a lifestyle change for our family versus how can like you make a change and how can I make a change, that it made all the difference. Because before, you know, he would be doing something and I would, you know, half do it or this sort of thing. But once we sat down and said like, well, what will work for us? Like, how can we meal plan together so that it makes sense for both of us, or how can we encourage each other? It made all the difference.
You know, once she's kind of been on board and kind of eating the same lifestyle as me, it's helped tremendously. So a little bit of an update for me on the medical side. So I have been able to discontinue seeing my specialty cardiologist. So my heart palpitations have decreased to the amount where it's usually about once a week, maybe once every 8 to 9 days, whereas I used to have them multiple times a day. And my blood pressure is in control now. It was high on the systolic range, I believe, and now it's under on both. Adam, can you say hi to the camera?
Good morning. I made all this. Identity is like a window that frames our view of the world.
We can handle something suboptimal better if we have all the nutrients available to help process that. So we can handle a stressful event. We can handle a late night. We can handle exposure to a food that normally would be really inflammatory for our bodies. We recover faster. And so having an overall nutrient density focus in the diet becomes the foundation of a diet that supports health.
The inflammation has gone down a ton, and so I don't have as much pain. in all of my body. Yeah, so it's been making my mobility better, it's been making my energy levels go up, just my mood, my sleep, everything has gotten so much better.
I would say I'm down about 15 pounds, and then, you know, just like little things, like my skin has cleared up a lot, and other things like I'm not as anxious.
Things are better and things are improving, and we're working with the slightly modified treatment plan, which is more of the same, like staying with my diet and staying with my healthy yoga.
People are stating we want time with our physicians. We want more office time. We want education about prevention. We want education about food as medicine.
I think that the medical community has a lot to learn about how important nutrition is. And by the way, I keep meeting people who are senior level doctors in medical institutions who are like me, who have come to realize how important nutrition is and are actually using it now.
Just working with my doctor, test results, really seeing how these, you know, the foods impact my body and my blood pressure and my A1C and those type of things, you know.
I'm glad that I worked on the first diet and failed, because it's given me a lot more drive and a lot more incentive.
It's just trying to keep on track and, you know, trying to not diverge off of that. And the process was not linear, I think. These stories are like windows into our past, and I need to share this knowledge with my children, and I ask you to do the same. And this will become a source of learning for generations to come.
I want to be playing soccer, playing music with my children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren in my 80s and 90s, and preferably when I'm 100.
I'm getting my health under control, and that is what was the step I wanted to take before I could move on to the next step, which would be having a family.
You know, once you start to see success, then, you know, you start to get the motivation, and it's easy to keep it going, you know, but in the beginning it's hard, right? So, yeah, you know, I think that, you know, I have a lot of hope for my journey going forward.
I can still have a fulfilling life and actually make these changes, and I don't have to go back to that old, you know, that wasn't like, that's not the goal of getting healthy.
And in the meantime, I say go home and cook a healthy meal in your home with your family, because that's what you can do today, what you can do now.
And this isn't like a cute Portlandia joke. This is real, and it matters.
This has really changed my life for the better. It's like almost saved my life.
I'm still on my journey. This is, you know, maybe the end of the film, but it's not the end of my journey for me.
We can all find our path forward by breaking out of our boxes, by painting and reclaiming our cities, and recording the lost stories in our communities. Because when we look out of our window of identity, we are all under the same blue sky.
We need the public to share the message that they're learning as well, so that we can affect as many people as possible.
And I do believe that that compounds on an exponential level on a community scale, that if we can heal ourselves, if we can feel good in our bodies, then we want to share that with our friends, our family, our community.
This is a lifestyle. This is a lifelong commitment to health, and it is a journey. But we all have to come to this place in our own way. We all have to come to it at our own pace.
The future of healthcare is teaching people how to create more and more health in their lives. That is the future of healthcare. And whatever profession will best deliver that will be the healthcare profession of the future.
Then we don't have to wrestle so much with what we're going to do with all these people who are going to get chronic disease, because chronic disease will disappear. And I think it's possible for us to do if we have the will to do it.